So we've got that in front of us. We'd like to begin on that.
Whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga. Ki mā kene kene te uta, ki mā taratara ki tai, e he aki ngā te atakura, e tio, huka, I hauhu, tūturi au whiti, whakamau, tīna, tīna, hui, tāra.
Okay, thank you very much. Now the first item obviously is the apologies, and the situation is we've got the owner, and we've got also our good friends from New Plymouth on Zoom up here, so that's fine. So would someone like to move I accept the apology? Thank you. Second? Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, say no. It's agreed. And then that brings us to our next stage, which of course is the minutes of the last meeting. So, what's happening here? Jam for some reason. If we can get it going again. Yep, be right. Yep, we're going. So the minutes of the last meeting, we have the confirmation of the joint committee meeting of last time. Would someone like to move that they be a true and correct record? Yep, Mayor Holdham and Mayor Nixon. So, okay, I'll put the motion that they be the true and correct record. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, say no. It's agreed. Is there any matters arising from those minutes that people want to talk about? There appears to be none. So we move on to the next item, which of course is the report back from the other committee. So would someone like to move that we receive this? Okay, kind of seconder. Hold them again. Thank you very much. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, say no. It's agreed. Now, is there any items to bring forward from this that you want to discuss? Got anything there, Sven, that needs to be brought here?
No, I would say the items I would generally comment on are contained in today's meeting agenda anyway, so they will cover them.
Okay, so we can pass on to the next item on the agenda. I'll just find...
Through you, Chair.
Yep.
I think when you took the motion, you took recommendation 1, which was to receive the report, but didn't necessarily take recommendation 2, which was to adopt the recommendations within it.
All right, well, in that case then, can I have it extended that that's what that covers? Is there any objection to that?
No, it's all right.
All right, well, that would be what we'll do. Is there any discussion on that? No? Okay, all right. So that brings us now to item number 4, doesn't it? Which is, just looking at this again. This is the, yes, the NEMA update is the next thing. So we've got people from NEMA here, so there too. That's
Come on, Carter. There's a microphone here, so they will work.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I just want to open, I guess, just in saying I'm coming to pretty well trying to get across all of the JCs over a 2-year period because there's so many of you, but over a 2-year period, and this is an opportunity to drop in, and it's quite timely because I know that there are elections coming up. I know that there are 1 or 2 who aren't standing, or certainly 1 who's not standing. Mayor Neil, I know that I saw something that you weren't intending to stand again. And with that comes, with those elections comes a degree of uncertainty in terms of the emergency management space, so it's an opportunity for that. I'll take the report that was finished by Pat as read, but I'll just highlight a couple of things before I come back to that. The key focus area for NEMA right now is the bill, and that has gone through Cabinet in terms of the first Cabinet paper, which was the substantial one, which is what the discussion paper was based on. And thank you for that. That's now in the drafting process before it goes to select committee, and that'll be the next opportunity for public consultation in terms of whatever it is that they end up drafting. And that will be between November and May of next year. In the interim, there are probably another 1, 2, 3 cabinet papers, certainly 2, that will address some of the smaller issues in terms of not being substantive in relation to emergency management more generally. And that's such things as should we change the name of the bill to from whatever it is at the moment, Civil Defence Emergency Management Act, to the Emergency Management Act. So relatively minor things like that, and 1 or 2 other smaller areas. The substantive issues that I know that certainly chief executives have concerns about, but of the ones that have gone forward include areas around representation of iwi Māori, particularly at that sort of KEG level, with an enablement, I guess you'd call it, to be represented on the JC, depending on what the regions actually desire. So it's an enabling as opposed to a must. The area around chief executives being held, and this at all levels, being appointed as controllers under legislation. And again, I know that there are a number of chief executives who have real concerns around that. It is the same at the national level. So at the moment, I am not a director. I have no accountability for anything during an emergency. And as chief executive, I find that just fundamentally wrong in terms of abrogating from a legal perspective down to the director and controller. Now, from my perspective, even though it will come to me under the new legislation, I will certainly be delegating that because I just don't have time to do that. And the intent in terms of this is, I'm not saying it's the case in terms of Taranaki, but in the past, there have been times when CEs have abrogated that accountability as well as responsibility down to what might be a Tier 5 controller. And the reality is that Tier 5 doesn't have the levers, doesn't have the influence that they need to ensure that they have the resources and everything else that is required to meet the intent and the requirements of the Joint Committee. So that's the purpose of it. And if I was a chief executive in that space, assuming that goes through, because we don't know yet, then I would say, yep, bring it on. I recognise that I'm accountable. I'm going to delegate, not the accountability, because you can't delegate that, but delegate the responsibility down to whoever it is that is the controller. So I know that has concerns. That will tease out over the drafting of the bill and also the subsequent and further public consultation. I think the other thing in terms of the bill is clarity in terms of leadership, particularly between what we call lead agency versus, I think they're going to call it strategic coordination, but I'm not sure. That's actually been developed by DPMC, and it's part of the National Resilience Framework, the ODESK system, and coming all the way down to controllers, EOCs, and so on. But again, it's having absolute clarity as to who is the lead, or to use a military term, who is the supported agency and who are the supporting agencies in terms of that coordination. I think those are the big ones in terms of the initial discussion paper, the initial cabinet paper that has been passed by cabinet. That will be public sometime soon. I'm not sure when exactly, but it will be public sometime soon. But as I say, there's a whole lot of other smaller ones that have to be picked up around animal welfare and everything else. And that will become clear over the next 2 to 3 months as we move towards November. So that's the bill. The other big part, and if you like, the flip side of the coin, and as we say to government, you can have the bill, and that's great, and you can have all the levers, but if you don't have the resources, you don't have the system, then you're not going to succeed. We will still fail. And the reality is right now that the system is not fit for purpose. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have the resources, and that's the main issue. It doesn't have the standards and professional framework that is required to meet the expectations, not just of government, not just of, and that's at local and national, but also the expectations of New Zealanders. And that continues to grow, particularly when we consider just the expectations that occurred down in Nelson Marlborough when they lost communications. You know, there is an expectation, even I have it, that I will always be able to reach for my phone and have, you know, 4 bars. That's just the reality. And the greater reliance that we have on technology, the greater the expectation that the public has. So the MSIP roadmap, which has been passed again by Cabinet, is a significant uplift. In fact, it is a genuine step change in terms of resourcing. It is as near to bipartisan as we can get it, meaning that all parties, including the opposition parties, are aware of it, support it in terms of intent. The challenge now is to manage it within the very limited fiscal budget that government has. But we have to actually get that across the road. The first 3 key areas that we're going to progress in particular is the COP, the Common Operating Picture, and the gold.
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to ask questions on the way through?
Oh yeah, of course.
Well, yes, if you want to do that. So.
Oh, thank you, because I think I just heard you say basically that we're going to have to massively overhaul the system, but you've got no money to do it. And there's an environment where the government is talking about rate capping us. So I don't think we should be glossing over that. So
No,
you've said you're going to implement these first 3 phases.
Yeah,
We've budgeted for a decade. Okay, each of us councils have got a confirmed 10-year financial plan. And we've indicated clearly what we're going to invest in this resource, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. And I just want to make it clear that if you're now telling us we're going to do this, this, and this, you're going to have to be really specific about how you're going to fund not only your initiatives, but how we're supposed to respond to your initiatives.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the way will phrase this is not about uplifting NEMA, this is uplifting the system writ large. So it's not about, you know...
Oh, I don't disagree, it needs to be done, but it needs to be done with money.
Yes, it does.
Not aspirational, oh, we're just going to go for it anyway with no extra cash. So, so when you're talking about your timeline of implementing this, what is the, you know, what's the time frame?
The time frame is 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
In terms of implementation, and it is still based on the ability for government to actually fund it.
But there's no commitment. There's no commitment to fund it.
There is commitment to the roadmap. There is commitment to, for example, the first cab off the ramp, which is the Common Operating Picture. In terms of, it's at the detailed business case. It's going through a gateway process at the moment. And again, it is about choices. It's about choices for national government. It's about choices for local government. But the fact of the matter is, at the moment, with some of these big events that are literally on the horizon, New Zealand will be in a poor space to meet the expectations. We can't even manage a decent wet weather event such as Gabrielle, and that is so small that it almost doesn't feature in terms of what we're preparing for at that national level. The MSIP program, all up, is you know, it's not in the tens of millions, it's in the hundreds of millions over a period of time. That's the intent, but it may be that depending on what the budget is doing or what the economic climate is, that it may be very limited in these first 2 or 3 years, and then perhaps ramp up afterwards. I don't know. The other thing in terms of nationally is we've got to be invited to bid. So we've got to win that battle in the the halls of Parliament with Treasury and everyone else to get that invitation, then we'll put the bid in and hopefully it'll be successful. What I do know is that the Prime Minister is certainly very invested in the emergency management space, as is both parties, both of the coalition parties in terms of this space. And it's a case of actually doing what we can with what we get. But I do want to emphasise it's not about NEMA. This is about the system across the board. And it has to be funded. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. It has to be funded, otherwise it's just going to fail.
Okay, is this subject, does anybody else want to ask any questions just while I think we should go on otherwise? You're all okay to proceed from here? Would you like to continue your report?
Just in terms of the only other area that I want to actually raise is, as I say, you've got elections coming up. One of the challenges that we've had again, and I'm not saying it's here because I don't really know, is the induction of elected members, and that's from council all the way through, and in terms of their responsibilities, their accountabilities in the space of emergency management. For some of the councils, we're going to be doing, who have asked, we will be doing some special briefings to help with that induction. And as I say, the offer is there if you want that in terms of support from NEMA. And along with that, just to put it in perspective, when the new ministers are elected or appointed as emergency management, we brief them immediately before they're sworn in. Because from the time that you are sworn in, as you're aware, you have to be aware of how to do your declaration, what that means, and what that process is against the hazards and risks that you may have here within this region. And yes, there's a process and everything else to manage that. But it was very obvious during, for example, 2023, Cyclone Gabriel, and I won't call out any mayors, but there was a particular mayor who had not been briefed at all by the time that had come around, some 3 months after the fact. And you can't afford that as elected members, considering, as I say, the fact that you can't scale up after the fact. It becomes very, very difficult. So we're happy to lean in if that's of value. And I note that Todd's taking a note of that if you need it, mate. But we're happy to do that. And I think I'll leave it there, Ms. Chair, unless there's any other questions.
Is there any questions? Just one thing that I did attend a webinar which was with a number of mayors and councillors and controllers, etc., concerning your first matter about responsibility and who's in charge and so forth. And it did seem that this was sort of something that was generated by the events in the Hawke's Bay. There was a lot of areas such as various places where they're small places where there was the two hats seemed to fit over each other and things of that sort. So it's obviously still a contentious matter with some people. And I guess there'll be further things like that webinar in which these things can be hammered out.
Yeah, absolutely there will be. And as I say, that next process will probably be during that November to, which will be after the elections, that November to May period, where they can be hammered out further. What the final result is, once it goes into select committee, it's no longer the minister's bill, it's the select committee's is the one that works through that before it goes back to cabinet for the first reading.
Well, there was really almost three quarters sort of NEMA response. There was the local control response. There was the places like Waroa, which had their own response. So anyway, that's a watch the space thing. Probably not such an issue here.
Yeah, thank you. We just heard a comment there about the lag period that follows the election to when people are briefed and brought up to speed, and we're familiar with the circumstance that arose there. So you've raised that as an issue, but there's also the issue of the period between when the election date occurs and the new council is actually sworn in. So there's sort of a period there of transition. Do we need to formally put any process in place here, or is that automatic now within the Act?
It's automatic with the minister being able to sign declarations and stuff for us if required while we're in that election place.
So if there's because what I understand Mayor Volsky's question is about if locally, until a mayor's sworn in, which we the first meeting, he or she's not able to exercise any powers, so you can default to the minister for a Stratford declaration, for example, in that case.
So that doesn't require a specific action of us?
So it'll be the 7 days or 10 days between declaration of the results and the first council meeting. Although the chief executive can swear you in at the outside of the meeting anyway, to be honest, I think. So you could actually swear this and then sign this.
Okay,
Order.
it's good that we've got some comfort around that. But going back to the original point, which is that period of when you get sworn in and then get briefed on what your role is at some point, that is, I think, a concern. I mean, we don't get to declare many declarations. I've been in the role 16 years. I think I've done 2, maybe 3, I'm not sure, but 2 anyway. And I'm not sure one was a discussion. I'm not sure it was a declaration. But that aside, you know, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Phil here, but we're in a position. Phil just had an event there recently. I think it was probably one of the first, and I think whoever the mayor is at the time, they need to be briefed right up front within the first week or 10 days, so that there's not that situation that happened up in Auckland where you got absolutely caught out like that. So,
I mean, I agree, Neil. In 6 years I've been a mayor, the closest I got was just recently. The paperwork was filled out, but I didn't actually get to sign it. So that's how close it got. But look, to the best of my memory, I haven't had an official briefing on civil defence. And so I would be very keen, and I think us as a council would be keen to be able to do some of that. So that's something I'd be keen to talk more about, perhaps with our staff and get through, and whether that's something we could actually do, and I agree with Neil's comments, sooner rather than later, got in place that we could perhaps do here in Stratford between the 3 councils. Doing it in one, because none of them would be council specific. It would be the same for everyone.
Yes, yep, absolutely. And as I said, happy to lean in and assist. It's just that, you know, I've noted that has been the case actually generally across the whole of the country, or that they have been taken through the Act. I'm not even sure whether they're awake at the end of that. You know, you've got to make it compelling, but it's also got to be localised in terms of understanding what the hazards are here, or for that matter, what the, in particular, critical logistics nodes or capabilities you have here in Taranaki, which have national implications if we lose them or we don't. And an example of that is in Napier, they have the second biggest pharmaceutical hub. And when Cyclone Gabrielle happened, there were no roads available to actually distribute the pharmaceuticals, which are done on a daily basis to keep the hospitals running. So we had to fly in. The only capability in New Zealand, these are the things that we don't really understand fully, the only capability in New Zealand, which was air ambulance, that had the certification to actually move some of these drugs across the country. Otherwise, the hospitals, you know, they have 2 days supply. That's how much they work on for some of these key drugs. And it's understanding that from a local basis, not just in terms of what your hazards are here, but what it is you've got here. And you've got shed loads in terms of gas and power and things here, which the rest of the country actually rely on. And therefore, should we nationally be positioning Bailey Bridges, for example, to ensure that State Highway 3 or something stays open? So it's understanding all of that. And we're only just getting together with the rest of the country in terms of understanding that on a national basis.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Chair, what they do in New Plymouth with it. I think they've been pussyfooting around with it this morning.
Let's not stir things up. Is there any other questions that you would like to ask or comments you would like to make before we pass on? And I'd just like to thank you for fairly comprehensive and I guess an indication that there's a lot of business to do and there's a lot of things to digest and to come to a conclusion on. So thank you for your advice and welcome to Taranaki, I might say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I say, if you need assistance with anything, just reach out. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Quarterly performance report. Do we have to, is that a moved and seconded report? All right, I'll get a mover and a seconder. It was advice rather than anything else, but let's have a mover, please. Mr. Holdham, thank you. Mr. Nixon. Very much. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, say no. It is agreed. Now we come to the quarterly performance report. And again, I guess I need a mover and a seconder just to begin it. So I'll move it, and Mr. Holden will second it, and you're on.
Thank you. Just to give you run through the quick highlights of the quarterly report and then receive any questions. So generally, probably the biggest highlight for it's quarter four end of the year has been the group plan, which we'll cover off in the next item. But massive amount of work from the team that has gone on through that, especially with the consultation and receiving feedback. So I'm pretty stoked to get where we are on that. But otherwise, our training across the groups is tracking really well, across the councils, across our volunteers. We're halfway through our allocated TEC fund, which is distributed by NEMA. So we've spent about $34,000 on training so far this year, and that's calendar year, not financial year. Along with that, as you heard Dave say, we've been heavily engaged with the MSIP, the system improvement work and the op system and the bill engagement. It's consumed a huge amount of time with that, but really, I see it as valuable work that we need to be a part of. So, support those comments that Dave's made around that. It's an exciting time to be in emergency management, given the change that we potentially will go through. Other bits and pieces just to highlight as well, we've just ticked off the Priority Roads project, and we're waiting for the final report to come out. That's coming from a consultant, and it'll be the whole of the North Island. I have said to the KEG that once that report comes out, we'll distribute that through the councils as well. So for a bit of transparency to see what that project ended up as. And lastly, well, not quite lastly, but the other highlight for us is just a community engagement piece around our move to community emergency hubs rather than civil defence centres. So a little bit of a rebranding exercise there, bringing the community a little bit more on board and giving a little bit more ownership to some of our community groups that are a little bit more empowered rather than always having to wait for civil defence to ride on the horse. So I'm grateful for the time councils have put into that. It's been a fairly long-winded project, a long-winded start to get the project rolling, but really valuable to make sure we're on the right page and we're all aligned with that. So looking forward to seeing that roll out in this financial year. Lastly, a couple of comments. We did deploy a couple of staff to Nelson, Tasman in the support of that weather event. It was a short-lived deployment, but once again, it shows the need to be supporting our nearest neighbours, and it's an opportune time to actually make sure our staff are getting deployment activities and experience in that sense. Otherwise, the most exciting piece for me is the financial report. Although it is presented in draft, currently sitting just under 28,000 on the right side of the ledger, and the positives. And the reason it's in draft at the moment is we've just got one invoice to invoice NPDC for the hybrid model, how now we have the emergency management advisor employed at TMO. So that 28,000 should grow by about 18,000. Which will put the CDM group budget in surplus. So we'll present that at the next KEG joint committee of what happens to that surplus. Whether it goes into reserve or payback to council. So that's a positive.
Okay, any questions? Just one, I guess it's a nitpicking thing to say. I think it's page 19 where you talk about, just in line 12, I think it is, or number 7, which you talk about a profit. I think you actually mean a surplus.
Surplus. Yeah.
Yes, because you're not a profit-producing organisation. And maybe If you say that, these gentlemen will want to grab it. Fair enough. So, okay, other questions that people want to ask?
Just one, Chair.
Yeah, hold.
Just on page 32, I see that I just wanted to understand what the additional subsidies and grants were, because I see that the budget for the year was 1.2, but the actuals came in at 1.6. And can you remind me, why the variance there?
Yeah, so I can't actually, I'm not sure why the budget is 1.2, because that's not correct. The budget for the year, the total revenue budget is 1.68. The subsidies and grants, which is the line 180 in the P&L, that's the council income. And then the lines above it, the 169, is recoverables through NEMA, through the TEC fund. And then basically the total revenue will be that 1682. The 125, we have, that would be back from 2018 budget. That's not correct, I would say.
Okay, so does that sort of validate some of the calculations? But, any other questions?
Possibly they might want to have to amend that. So if it's not correct, could somebody
Yeah.
just check that and bring it back to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah, so this is presented as a draft. So we're just doing that little line out with the finance team.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or points about any of this?
Just a comment, thank you, Chair. Just on page 29, under the heading of successes, the very first bullet point there just makes reference to the fact that Taranaki CDM ranked very highly in terms of community relationships, stakeholder engagement. And then I think a couple of pages earlier it talked about 75,000 people looking at one of the social media posts that was put up during the last weather event, I presume. And I just, that sort of endorses that comment, but I just wanted to make the point that during those, I think, two sort of main weather events that occurred in July, the feedback from the community that I got was that people felt informed. They were clearly seeking lots of information, and they were able to get that from online sources, including civil defence, which is good. And to me, it kind of demonstrates there's a growing reliance for people, from people to get that information, get it early, so they can respond. And that's particularly so with our rural community, who need to move stock to higher ground in many cases. So my observation of the whole thing was, in our area at least, it was really well run. I sat in on 2 meetings and observed, and in this particular instance, Ben was actually away, so it was a delegated responsibility, and our staff really picked up and did a great job. So I just wanted to say that, and I also just wanted to acknowledge your role that you played in handling those events, because these are occurring so frequently and they're of such magnitude now that as soon as the balloon goes up, people are wanting information and security, and I think we're in a good space in that area. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and that event to a certain extent was odd in the sense that it was in one place and not in another and all that kind of thing. We do seem to have a lot of localised events now, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I think Dave's alluded to it as well. The frequency of our events is only probably going to increase given what we're seeing. As you'll know, through the period of July, what created these weather events that we're seeing was the heat in the Tasman Sea, a bit of a tropical sort of ocean current through the Tasman Sea, which creates the uplift of the convection for the thunderstorms. But yeah, thanks for the knowledge. We are seeing a massive amount of thirst, we'll call it, for knowledge or experience, or for people wanting to engage. It does cause us some minor sort of headaches with actually being able to meet the requirement of the public, but I think that's a good challenge for us to actually have that to be able to continue meeting expectations out in the community, and hence why we're going to that community hub model where we're actually going to continue to empower our community.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment, Chair, so I'm really keen on the community hub thing. It's something I've talked about quite a bit in the past, and I think we really do need to empower our communities, have people there that know what's expected, know what they can do, because we do tend to find a few think they know and end up being more of a hindrance than anything, so I think that is really important. I just reiterate Neil's comments. I think it was really good. It was like we really maxed out with infrastructure and rivers and all sorts. We had the odd breach, but overall we were pretty lucky, and I think it was a good test, and I think it was good, like, you know, what our staff did, and working with you guys. So it was a good test, because we haven't had a proper test for a while, and we always learn from those things. So no, I think it was well done to everyone for that. Just the only other comment, again on page 32, you're good to see there is a surplus, but I still see it sits in brackets.
I won't comment on behalf of NPDC, but we are working on a few things with the finance team there. I'd like to acknowledge those comments, and it's quickly with that activation on the 3rd of July, although it was small for the region, we were very close to having some significant impact. And New Plymouth was an island at once with the roads, and but it was the first time in anger that we had 2 EOCs and the ECC activated. So lots of learnings out of it, but lots of really good positives. So it was nice to have one in that sense, and we haven't had it really for a long, long time in that way. So, and thanks for the photos of the Waitara River in New South.
No problem.
Okay, so is that everything wishes to cover on this one? Okay, well, we've put the motion, I think, on this, so we can move on to the next item, which is number 8, NEMA technical review on the draft Taranaki CDM Group Plan 2025-2030, and that's you again.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. As I mentioned in the quarterly update, this has been a heck of a journey, and I brought our senior planner along, American lawyer, in the corner, so she can take any technical questions. She's the expert, not me. But yeah, been a big journey to get where we are. So this paper is about presenting the work that we've done with our partners NEMA. We've gone and worked through multiple rounds of feedback with them to get to the current state. So I'll leave it if there is any questions around that process, and let Erica answer those.
Okay, questions? Mayor Holden.
Just on page 99, there's a recommendation from NEMA that you're basically relating to, they're almost directing you to hire a public information manager. And your response, can you just give us your view on, like, are they kind of, it sounds like a bit of overreach, really, and I think your response looks sound, but could you just give us some commentary on that?
You want to give the commentary? What do you want me to?
Go for it, Todd. I don't have the agenda.
They're throwing the ball back and forth between.
Okay, so yeah, just given some of the conversations just previous to this paper, the public information manager role, we actually have a comms and marketing person that fills that role with inside the TMO team. So it is manned. We do have someone that is in that role inside the team. The only issue I see with that at the moment, so we're not going down and employing additional staff or making any submission for additional staff. But I do see in the near future we would have to align to some other groups where they actually have a PIM duty person, because of at the moment, if we want to do any website updates or we've got some significant messaging during response, I've got one PIM manager. But there are multiple solutions to solve that problem. We've got councils that all have comms and marketing staff. So how we approach that problem has got multiple solutions. So at the moment, we have someone that fills that role. They're just called our comms and marketing advisor inside the TMO team, and we're quite happy where we sit. But given the increase of public want, we may have to address some other issues here further down the track.
Okay, does it answer your question? Okay.
Yes, and it was just the other comment was if you look at page 108, item number 11. And I mean, is this an indication, because it's kind of speaks to the issues we discussed before, any of the existing reference government funding mechanisms are subject to change? And I suppose it just seems to me that we should be putting something on our risk register to say that we can expect, basically government wants us to ramp up, but it would seem that they're not even guaranteeing the existing funding streams, let alone providing anything more. And that should be seen as a strategic risk for the group.
Yeah, so I suppose this comment here, so we disagreed with Nima's comment on this, and the reason was we didn't want to name a whole lot of agencies in that strategic plan in case there was changes coming up. And so we left it as a broad-reaching statement that there are multiple agencies that fund not only recovery but welfare and so forth. So we didn't go down the path of actually physically naming every single funding opportunity that there is or mechanism that there is in recovery, or in fact any part of the work we do. So yeah, I guess it gets quite complicated if you're going to name every single funding mechanism in a 5-year strategic plan when there probably is going to be significant change depending on where we're at.
Any other questions that people have?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Page 55, where they've got the CDM considerations within the built environment on the right-hand side, the fourth bullet point down. Most communications transmission equipment is located on Mount Taranaki and will be affected during an eruption event. And some of the cell phone transmission towers are susceptible to landslips. Could I just have some clarification, please, on most transmission equipment is on the mountain? I know a lot is, but what would be the impact if all communication on the mountain stopped right now? What is affected?
I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I know a significant amount of it is. Why we could compile that list and our lifeline agencies would be able to provide that to us.
I think it would be interesting for us to know and understand and see what sort of resilience we perhaps need there, because to me, I think that's a real concern, as I think it's a concern that we're saying that some of the cell phone transmission towers are susceptible to landslips. I mean, that's not infrastructure that was built 50 years ago. Surely we're not building that sort of stuff and haven't in recent time in areas susceptible to landslips. Because, I mean, they're damn important to us. We haven't got enough of them now.
Yeah. So that'll be looked at during the 5-year volcanic program that we're implementing over the duration of this group plan. So all those risks will be looked at during that program of work.
Yeah, okay.
How we can best manage those risks and build resilience. So it is a program of work that we're going to be undertaking over the duration of this group plan, and that's the outcomes of the research from Himangapuia project. So we've highlighted it as a risk, and we want to do something about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, yep. Page 79, the emergency mobile alert. Obviously, we had that going off quite a bit recently, and there's been a bit of kickback on it. Any comments on that, please? Where we're at with that?
Like the whether it's right or wrong, the emergency management, the EMA, the mobile alerting system, is a tool to be used if there's a threat to life or property, and how that's assessed. For example, the other day, I mean, it's done by a group of obviously tsunami and GNS experts looking at what the hazard is. Much like we did in Cyclone Gita, so I'll relate the one from the tsunami to Cyclone Gita. There's a point where you need to, when you're in that role, you need to make a decision of if you're going to send the alert out in the middle of the night or preempt it and send it out in daylight hours so you're not waking everybody up. And we made the similar call in Cyclone Gita when we lost water to New Plymouth. We decided to send the alert out in the early hours of the evening rather than at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning when the water was to come back on, and we would do a boil water notice. So speaking with Wendy Wright, who's the national controller, I would imagine some of that decision-making process would have run through here. The tsunami was to come through at 1 o'clock, roughly, first wave 1 o'clock. Let's not wake people at 1 a.m. in the morning. Let's give them a preemptive message that there's a risk. Gives opportunities for vessels to be secured, so marine and beach threat, those places, Tutakaka, Northland, the Aucklands, the Bay of Plenty that have liveaboard boats and they see big tidal movements through currents will be, gives liveaboards and owners time to secure or make the right decisions to secure assets, I guess. So, and then the data that was coming through for the tsunami, the first real sign of data on our dartboy system was probably going to be about 9 o'clock at night, which is getting into that later period to send out an EMA really, or the risks. So hard to make that decision, what the right time is, but I guess that's, cool.
Yeah.
The 6:31 I didn't like, it freaked me out, but yeah.
The other part with it, I think it would have been 2 days after the actual event, we were still getting the warnings coming through. I was in an event with about 200 people there, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 phones around the room would go off, and a quarter of an hour later 2 or 3 different ones, and it just seemed funny. I would have more or less expected the whole room to have gone off.
I'm not sure if that was the national warning system or the EMA.
There's a difference between the national warning system and their specific phone numbers or appointments. You will get a warning system notification that something is happening, as opposed to the EMA, which is the public warning system. So, for example, Todd would get and obviously yourself, would get a national warning system saying, this is the situation, and at times, locally, you can put out an EMA locally, but not everyone else. So there were only 2 EMAs, nationally put out, one at about 4:30, which is prior to the night that Todd was just talking about, and the other one at 6:30. And we get brickbats and bouquets. But I think they got it right. And what a lot of people don't understand, particularly in terms of New Zealand. New Zealand's unique in terms of where it sits in relation to geography. And with an earthquake of that size in Russia, it comes down, you get that first tsunami wave comes down, but then as it comes down and it spreads out and it hits, in particular, South America, it bounces off South America and comes back, and there's nowhere between South America and New Zealand other than the Chathams. And that's why we had a far longer period that we had to do the analysis and everything else, and those dart buoys got set off again during that bounce back, and why we had to go right through to the following morning.
Thank you. Just a final point, Chair, on page 124. The comment down there, as far as spokespeople goes, it says, i.e. single district, mayor as spokesperson, multi-district or regional scale, Taranaki Regional Council chair, and it's also mentioned a reference on 126. I feel that should be the chair of the mayoral forum as the regional spokesperson. I don't know what the other mayors think of that, but
Well, you'd like to comment on that one?
It'll be the 26.
page 124 and 126.
Item 24, role of mayors. So the draft is silent on the role of mayors during response, particularly in respect of expectation that mayors will be spokesperson during response, and how that is coordinated with multiple districts. The findings of 23 Auckland flood references include a description of mayors and other elected officials, role during response, and we wrote agree the inclusion of the content is valuable. Content will reflect Sims 3 governance roles, and then we didn't. We will also outline the expectation of establishing strategic communications support for response and leadership and governance in the single district mayor as spokesperson, multi-district or regional scale. And I suppose Taranaki Regional Chair should either be mayoral forum or joint committee. Joint committee is...
Well, it'll depend on whether it's a regional declaration or just a local declaration. I would have thought if it's still just local, the districts will be the mayoral level.
Correct.
If it's a regional declaration, it will be the regional chair.
Yeah.
Because it's that's where the official function
Functions,
sits,
yep.
is with the regional council.
Yep.
Now, you also have, of course, the PIM speaking, supporting that process, or in parallel with or supporting that process anyway.
So, but where it says that there, i.e. single district, mayor as spokesperson, are we talking about the person that declares, or are we talking about a spokesperson?
Well, you're talking about who has declared. Is it a single district, or it could be South and New Plymouth that have both declared?
Yep.
So that's still individual district declarations.
Yep.
Therefore, the two mayors
Of their district.
of their district.
Yep.
But if it's the region as a whole, is when it's a regional council function.
Yep.
So therefore, it should be the regional council chair.
Okay, so that within CD, that defaults to the regional council.
Yes, it's the.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, so
regional
that'll explain
declaration.
why
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you'll, in a district declaration, the mayor will stand up and be you are the head of the snake, I guess.
Yep.
But you'll have your controller and your PIM beside you, and
Yep.
yeah.
This is a statutory matter rather than a practical matter.
Yeah, well, I was just reading in there. Just clarification too on that same page, just to the right of that column, where you say change recommended, page 59, before the response, insert the following. What page are we talking about?
Oh, so when it refers in the feedback, when it refers to page 59, that's in the group plan.
Yeah, but that doesn't add up. If you go to 59 in the group plan, there's a photo of the mountain or something.
That would have been the previous draft. So
So that's how I got confused.
apologies for that. I'll find it.
There's been a few changes
There's been
with feedback. 59.
So 59 is on page 68 of the agenda,
Yeah.
and there's a photo of the mountain.
Yeah.
And there's other references too that I couldn't see what they were referred to. So thank you, I'm not losing it.
No, you're not.
No, most definitely not. It would have been the previous draft.
Okay,
Find it for you. I apologise.
that's all from me.
So one of the things we've tried to really do is with the feedback is we've started to incorporate some of the feedback into one of the versions we have of the group plan, so that if we're ahead of the game with it going to the minister back for comment. So if everything's accepted in this, we're actually about one step ahead. So
It really proves you read it very thoroughly. That's
Page
very good.
75. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Mayor Volsky.
Yeah, thank you. I just seek some clarification. Page 46. There's a map there showing the CDM group area.
yes,
Yeah. So I think I've asked this once before or twice, but just reaffirm it for me. So Stratford District boundaries don't align with the regional boundaries. About a third of our district is in horizons. And I think the narrative there on the left says, explains that, but it makes a reference to, it encompasses the Wonga, Mako and Tahora settlements, all of which are in Stratford. And then it references the Wonga saddle representing the eastern landmark boundary. Why don't you use the Tangarakau Gorge as the eastern landmark boundary? Because that's the boundary of our district, which is half an hour away from Wonga.
I'll make a correction.
Yeah, I just think it would just clarify it.
Yep,
Because
absolutely.
the narrative kind of infers Wonga as the stop point,
yeah.
but the map tells you it's not.
Yep.
And our district actually goes to the Tangarakau Gorge
Tangaraka? Sure.
on State Highway 43. So from this, what I'm taking is that even though about a third of our district sits in the horizons area, the Taranaki CD looks after that area.
Yeah, we
Same
do.
way we do with roads. Yeah.
Absolutely. So was that the Tangaraka Gorge?
Tangarakau, yeah.
Thank you for that.
I'm happy to talk to you afterwards.
Brilliant.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and
Yep.
just asking Mayor Nixon, maybe looking at that map, does the map accurate down the Wanganui end?
It's a little bit hard to tell. It may not be quite far enough south. It's not too far away. I presume,
Taranaki comes
so that'd be
down-
the Patia River, I would say, is under where it says South Taranaki District. So the next big one would be Waitotara, and we're south of that, but
Yeah.
we're actually, it's almost too far south. It's pretty close in that boundary.
Well, what happens, of course, it goes down to the Nukamaru Road just about, and then it goes
Yeah,
up into Pakaraka Road and along quite a distance. You're only 18 kilometres from Wanganui at your closest point. So I just wonder whether it might be worthwhile just checking that out too, see whether the map's correct there, because we do have this sort of odd kink in the Taranaki that goes out there, and again, it's, I think, quite important that we get it right in terms of who actually, if someone, you know, the freak condition looking at this map might not really know where they should be going, quite honestly.
We can make a note to double check that on our GA system, sure.
Happy to give South Taranaki some more land.
quite happy to take it. Just a suggestion, maybe in a map like that, that there should be the odd reference like Waverley, Waiunu should be on there, Mulkow in the south, that sort of thing, that, sorry, in the north, that just gives you a bit of a reference where you are, because just, again, sort of a layman looking at the map,
Sure.
you wouldn't be sure, but it would just give us those points.
Yep, some
Those key
reference
landmarks.
points.
Yeah.
Waitotara, Walko.
Yep.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Easy.
Wouldn't like to think that people in New Plymouth didn't know what was happening at that area of the town.
Well, no, yeah, but I mean, it's not necessarily just people in New Plymouth looking at it, Chair.
Okay, all right, so is there any further comments on this one? Hope I haven't stored up any parochial reactions. So I didn't take a mover and a seconder on this.
I suppose the only other key thing for us is, so I've convinced Neil to hand over his signature for signing the letter to the Minister, which we'll post away tomorrow with the group plan if we make these quick last little changes for comment. What that means is, as you'll see in the memo presented, that we'd like to come back, as we don't have another joint committee chair, joint committee or KEG for this year, is to grab a small section of your mayoral forum time on the 11th and go into joint committee to adopt the group plan once the Minister has appointed or made comment.
Happy, Chair?
Thank you. And we'll-
Okay, all right. So,
Perhaps just mention, through you, Chair, just mentioning the mayoral forum, I think, just trying to read through this last night and yesterday, it was a really comprehensive technical document. And I can't imagine how many hours have been spent preparing this, so just perhaps acknowledge the work that's gone into it, because it comes to us and we kind of sit here in about a quarter of an hour, the job's done, but I know that there's literally months and months of work gone into this, so thank you to everybody that's prepared this.
Glad it's only every 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, it probably takes 5 years to, yeah.
I haven't. I didn't think I had, so could we have a mover and a seconder for the acceptance of this one? And two mayors here, put the motion, or we've got three unanimous. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Against, say no. It's agreed. So we come to item number 9, which is submission to the Emergency Management Bill reform process. So can I have a mover and a seconder for that one? And we're holding. Thank you very much. So you're on again.
This is just for receiving. I know this was a really quite tight timeframe for us, and that's why it didn't come through KEG and Joint Committee last time. It was actually in that same meeting cycle. It was about a 4-week turnaround window for this. So I had one of the staff members prepare submissions. Along that same time, we were submitting as a SIG as well through local government channels, so there's been multiple submissions through that. Just quickly comment, like some of the comments, and I'll reiterate what Dave said. really support some of that, that CEO stuff. Also, the iwi stuff has been a little bit stuff for us. We are in support of the system that we operate in Taranaki, the 3 waka, potentially not some of the full stuff that that's been presented in the discussion papers. So it has been quite a journey, and there's been multiple submissions, so it'll be interesting to see the next phase when it gets to select committee and that opportunity then.
Okay, is there any particular questions on this? There appears to be none, so I will put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, say no. It's agreed. And we come to item 10, the volcanic program management plan. And I'll get a move on the seconder for that one as well. Hold'em and Volsky. Thank you very much. And you're doing that. Yeah.
I am. So normally I'd have Craig Cable Smart come along and present this. This is something that he's led in this project plan, but this comes out of the investment investment logic mapping project we did around a volcanic hazard, which led us down this path. So basically we've come up with a 5-year project plan on the work we're going to do within the resources we have within TIMO currently. Kind of a large project, but I fully believe that before we even start something like this, we need a bit of structure. How that structure evolves and takes twists and turns over the next 5 years, we'll wait and see, but we need to start on doing some work around our number one hazard for Taranaki. So the project plan is there for your reference, and then also attached at the back of the project plan was a presentation that was presented to KEG on some of the hazard stuff and some of the science of where we've got to now. Most of you would have seen at some form some of that slides in that presentation through the Hamangapua project and the time Tom Wilson's been to KEG or Joint Committee in the past. What I will note, I know it's 5 years, but I have said to the team I think this will be longer than 5 years, given the amount of work that's there, given the twists and turns we do as civil defence. We just can't spend a solid 5 years working on one thing. But yeah, it is exciting work, and it will lead to us having a fairly robust, what I would call catastrophic plan for the region, given this is our number one hazard and the number one thing that's going to cause us the most disruption. So I think it's an exciting time to be starting this work.
Okay, any questions about this? All right, well, if there's no particular question, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, say no. And it's agreed. And that brings us to the end of our meeting. We have Karakia. I guess before we actually finish, I should note that this is the last time probably this committee will have any meetings.
Are you going to have another meeting on the Mural Forum? We just talked about.
Yeah, but as far as this particular...
No, that'll have to be an official meeting of this committee, because otherwise it can't do it pre-plan. So that will be the last official meeting in conjunction with the Mural Forum in a couple of weeks' time.
I was just going to thank people for their participation and just say good luck for those that are going for election, and just to those who are not, thank them for their many contributions to the province over many years. And no doubt you'll re-emerge in some new way to work for Taranaki. So congratulations on that sort of approach. I mean, things happen and people change. So we've got the closing karakia. So
thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Your contribution has been noted.
Appreciate it.
Okay, closing karakia is here.
Ke uru mai, aho, aho, aho mai. Ke ronga, ke raro, ke roto, ke wā. Riri, riri, ai mai.
Well, thank you for your attendance. Close the meeting.
Just walked in. Oh, karakia for Kai.
You are actually having it. Okay, or I didn't realise we were.
Do you want me to say that one as well?
Yes, right.
No mai e ngā hui, o te wā, o te ngā kina, o te wā tai, o te wā Māori, ngā tānei, ngā rongo, ngā tangaroa, ngā mau, kua ngui, e tū ni, ko taki, whiti, whakamaro, ki tina, hui, tāhaki. I haven't practiced that one.
Okay. Well, thank you. We don't normally have for this meeting.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, well,
Gotta do
thank you
it.
for your attendance, and that's great. That's the meeting.